virtual online webinar series on enterprise architecture and IT infrastructure. On this auspicious August gathering, I, Vaishnavi Thorat, Students Coordinator, IEEE Student Branch of ADCT, would like to welcome Honorable Executive Director, Sri Gnaneshwar Shikshan Sanstha, Islampur, Professor R. A. Kanai, sir. Welcome, sir. I welcome Director of our ADCT, Dr. Vikram Patil, sir. Welcome you, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome Head of CSE Department, Dr. Smriti H. Bhandari, ma'am. Welcome you, ma'am. I'm very excited to welcome resource person of today's webinar, Mr. Vinay Hasbe, Consultant Solution Architect, TCS Pune. Welcome you, sir. I welcome all the deans, faculty members of our ADCT Ashta. Last but not the least, I heartily welcome all the participants of this webinar. Welcome all the present members. Mr. Vinay Hasbe sir completed BE CSE from Walchand College of Engineering, Sangli in year 2002. He was campus recruit in TCS. It's been 18 plus years he is working with TCS and has played a role starting with developer till solution architect. He is agile leader with passion for technology. He is cloud proficient. He has extensive experience in design and development of enterprise applications and have successfully driven large-scale projects. He is certified Agilist leader, TOGAF certified architect, certified Scrum Master, and several other technology certifications. He is truly believes running in a lifelong process. With this brief bio sketch, I present before you eminent personality, Mr. Vinay Hasbe sir. Please start your session.
Thank you for the generous introduction, Vaishnavi. Thank you so much. And let me quickly show my face to you, and maybe I'll switch it off after some time when I start my presentation. So, hello everyone. Thank you so very much for this great opportunity to interact with all of you. And I'm grateful to Suhas Sapati sir. I'm calling him Suhas with his name because he's a dear friend to me. He was senior to me in Walchand College of Engineering. So thank you, Suhas, for this opportunity. And I will begin today's topic. Let me share my screen. And I'm sorry, I may not be able to address each and every one of it. There are a lot of dignitaries here, a lot of senior faculty members here. So I'm grateful to all of you. So let me present my screen. Please let me know if you're able to see.
Yes, sir.
Someone can. Okay, thank you. So today's topic is enterprise architecture and IT infrastructure. Before we deep dive into this topic, we will quickly brush upon the basics of web application. Uh, I, I assume you are you have learned a little bit about either as part of your curriculum in second year or third year. You have learned about web application architecture, the basics of web application and how web applications work. We will quickly revisit those concepts and we will get into the actual topic. So as we all know, and this is just a quick tip for all of you who are going to give interviews in the coming few months or maybe next year. So I typically generally, because I as part of TCS recruitment drive, whenever I take interviews, I generally start with a basic question, which is like, tell me in technical terms what happens when you open a browser in your mobile or in your desktop, and when you hit let's say www.dreamdesigners.com, you hit this URL, you type in this URL. After that, you get a page and it gets rendered. But there is a lot of IT magic happens when you do this, right? So explain me what happens. So this is a very basic question that I ask to every of my candidate who I interview, and I get various answers. Basically, even though this is a very small action that we do every day as part of our mobile usage or as part of our desktop usage, and if you have to appreciate what all happens behind this quick process, then I'm say we truly justify our engineering education, right? So what happens when we hit this URL? First, it goes to the DNS server, as we know, domain name services there, which will take this URL as input, and it will respond back with the IP address associated with this particular URL. So the browser will take care of the DNS resolution because it knows from the network configuration which DNS server it has to hit. Once it gets the IP address, then to that IP address, the web client, which is the browser, it will it will send a request, HTTP request to that IP address, and there is a lot of magic happens from your client till the web server. There are a lot of public. It will first go through your private network. If you are part of a private network, then it will reach out to the public network, and in the public network, it will hop from location to location through the internet server, and it will finally reach to the web server at its destination. And the web server runs the networking application, web application, and it will keep on listening to port 80 or 443, and it will respond with the page that you have requested, or it will respond with the default index.html. Then that page travels back to the browser, and the browser will interpret the response, and it will render the page. Okay, so the page might have some JavaScripts, and the browser will understand how to interpret the JavaScripts, and it will render the page. So that all happens. But just the request part, right? There are a lot of protocols which are used. You must have learned the open system interconnection model, OSI model. As part of that model, through the 7 layer, this particular request will flow right from application layer till the physical data link layer, and then physical layer. And in that, it uses various protocols. So at application level, it will use the HTTP or HTTPS kind of a protocol. It will go through the SSL protocol, and then the transport level protocol, TLS, and through the TCP/IP networking protocol, it will the actual request will flow to the web server, and it will come back. So I generally expect students to at least talk some basics about this. Now, this is web application. So I'll stop about the web application basics here. And this is something we learn in our education curriculum. But when we actually enter into the IT industry, let me tell you that a whole lot of business, IT solutions revolve around web applications, right? But then this basic concept of web application is amplified to an enterprise level, and this gets surrounded with a whole lot of concepts which we may not learn as part of our curriculum. So I will quickly touch base upon all those concepts and what happens in the IT industry. So as I said, most of the IT solutions revolve around web application as a solution. Almost 80% of the IT solutions are web applications, and the rest 20% are maybe these are network kind of application. These are client, OS specific applications and other solutions. So moving on, we will, as part of this particular session, we will go through a particular business use case as an example, and we will try to solve a problem for a company. The company is named Dream Designers. It's just an hypothetical use case. It's a civil engineering small scale organization, and they are into a business wherein they are creating the construction plans, designs, and models. Their total employee base is 100, and they are spread across 2 cities, let's say Pune and Mumbai, and they have 2 offices, one in each city. Now, the company is in operation for last 10 years. And over the last 10 years, they have completed a whole lot of projects. And as part of those project execution, what they have accumulated is an enormous amount of knowledge. But in terms of the project designs, those are in digital formats, raw sketches, images. They're using various softwares, in fact, and almost now 99% of all the work happens in in building construction industry in terms of designing and modeling, that happens on CAD CAM kind of a software. So they have also, at least they have started their IT journey where each and every of their employee has a laptop or a desktop, and all the work happens on the computers. Now, let's come to the to the problem statement. What kind of a problem they are facing and what kind of a solution that they are looking for. Now, as part of the anytime a customer approaches this company and they form a team, and that team will start to work on the customer's requirement in order to create the building design and models, etc. But that process is always from scratch. They are able to utilize some of their past knowledge, whatever they have accumulated in 10 years, but it is not as efficient as possible, because the people who are working, the draftsmen or the designers or the planners, they may not be of the same experience level. So they may not even have knowledge of the past projects, or even if they have the knowledge of the past project, they don't have a good channel. They'll have to reach out to the seniors, ask them if there are any similar projects happen, can I refer those designs, etc. Or they'll have to do a lot of research on their own. So the company CEO or whoever is the responsible person wants to embark on an IT journey wherein they want to build, just to begin with, they want to build an intranet portal. And as part of that intranet portal, they want to have a search page wherein any of their employee should be able to go and type in keywords. Let's say the new project is coming for a hospital design, a hospital kind of a building design. So if I put in building type is equal to hospital, I should be able to get all my past projects for which we have done the design for the hospital, and I should be able to at least look at those artifacts in the digital format, and I should be able to use it. So this is a architecture vision. Okay, so this is what we call a business architecture vision, or it's called an architecture vision. Now the project starts with this architecture vision. Now, in order to begin this project, right, a team is formed. In typical IT industry, a team is formed, and they will try to understand what is the business and what is the business architecture model and what kind of processes are happening, and exactly which particular business process I have to automate. In this case, if you take a look at this Dream Designers as a company, at a whenever a customer approaches them, they will form a team. Obviously, a small team. Dream Designers will form a small team, and which will start working with the customer. Now, they will have some sort of requirement gathering sessions. Okay, so this is not IT requirement gathering, but they will ask the customer what kind of a land you have, what are the measurements, can you give me the plan that you have for your land, and they might get into a site visit, and they will list down what kind of a building you want, how many stories building you want, what kind of facilities you want to have in. So all those requirement gathering will happen. Now, taking those requirements into consideration, there will be sub teams who will start working. So there will be some leader who will actually, for this particular project, means this architectural design and development project, they will put up a plan. They will start with designing activity, and they will also use the softwares to do the modeling activity, and they will also might do some estimates for the building, and then they will also prepare some plan, and this becomes the deliverable for that particular customer. So it might be a 1 month or a 2 month contract which the customer has signed with Dream Designers, and at the end of that contract, customer X will get deliverables. They will get a plan, they will get a design, they will get a model, and that company will get into another contract with the actual building contractor who will build the who will actually do the construction as well. This particular business, they have a management layer, project management office, because this is a 100 member company. They have a lot of administration, finance, HR kind of activities, but because they are not a big company, the project management office, there are a set of project managers and leaders who are taking care of all of these activities. Maybe they have a small sales teams which are focusing on getting new customers or engaging the existing customers. So this is their business model. So whenever a project starts, we first, as an IT team, will want to understand what kind of a business that they are doing. And then, because if a CEO comes in and says that this is my company and I want to build a business portal, with this particular use case I may not be able to start my work. I'll have to ask a whole lot of questions, and that back and forth questioning results into this business architecture model. So IT team will have someone called business analyst who will understand their business, and they'll create a business architecture model. Then from the business architecture model, we also try to document a whole lot of answers to a whole lot of questions. As part of this architecture model, we typically try to gather answer to these 6 questions. There are 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and then there is one H: how. So on the next page, let's quickly talk about what these questions are and what are the answers. So in the context of the business architecture model, who are all the actors, or who are all the people who are involved in this business architecture? Obviously, this is a civil engineering firm. Customer is the first actor, without which the business will not exist. Then there are analysts who are working with the customer. Then there are planners who are actually taking the inputs and they are putting down the construction plan. Then there are designers who are who are drafting the architecture. Then there are modelers who are actually doing the 2D, 3D models. Then there are managers who are actually driving this particular project. They are making sure that the work is progressing as per the schedule. Then there is a sales team who is actually trying to get the new business. Okay, so these are all the actors. Then what are they doing, or what kind of a data that they are producing? Customer obviously will be giving inputs, and these inputs must be coming in some format. They must be filling out a questionnaire in terms of the land details or what kind of requirements they have. So those inputs are must be stored in some digital format or in some standardized format for all their projects. Then as part of the deliverables, they will be producing the plan. They'll be producing the design and models. So these can be most of the time these will be in the digital format, or some customer might say that give us printed format. So these deliverables will be there. Then obviously we spoke about the past project data. They have a lot of past project data. Then there will be a lot of internal documents and data as part of the operation of the company. There may be financial documents, invoices, tax documents, and whatnot. So these are the major data items that this company is either receiving or producing. Now we know who, what, but we are processing the input data and creating the output data item, but how it is being done? So do we have a documented process? Generally, our analyst will ask this question: do you have a process using which you are creating these output? So because this is sort of a very initial a small scale firm, and they have grown only in last 2 years, they don't have any documented process. Whatever their subject matter experts, SMEs, who are senior folks in the organization, they are guiding their juniors, and they are just they are helping all the projects to produce the outputs. So the process is not documented. Then when obviously they are as they are completing the work in scheduled time, they must be having some sort of a project plan. They must be signing some contract with the customer, and the managers must be driving those projects. So there is a the when part, the timing part is there, and then where. So this is not a very pertinent question in this context, but in terms of where, the dream designers team must be visiting the customer premise or the site, and they are working from the dream designer offices, and they are producing this particular output. They are working on the deliverables. Now why? So why question is the answer here is very generic, and this is the sole purpose of existence of this business architecture or this business model, or the company's existence. So they want to increase the sales, they want to increase the revenue, they want to increase the profitability for delivering quality work. All these parameters that you see, these are applicable almost to every kind of an organization. The organization need not be profit driven organization. These can be non-profit organization, these could be government organization, These could be NGOs and any these are but the purpose of all the organizations revolve around all these 6 questions. Now let's take a look at the information systems architecture. So what we do is when we have like the IT team, they will first understand the business architecture, then they will try to document the information system architecture. So what is information system architecture? Whatever is their IT spread, they will try to document, because this is a very simplified use case and a very simple IT setup that this company has. What you see here is customer is giving requirements to the dream designers team. This dream designer team they are working on their laptops or desktops, and they are working on the deliverables, maybe plan, design, model, etc. And what were they taking as inputs? They are taking one input is the requirement coming from customer. Other inputs are like past project digital files, and these are in the current scenario. Let us assume that these are in the storage devices, and there are a lot of printed design documents from the past projects. Also, they are reaching out to the maybe their senior team or their leadership team. They are who are providing the consultation. They are reviewing their designs, and maybe they are able to provide some reusable component. So these are the only inputs which this team is getting, and they are producing the output. So whatever is the contractual deliverable made with the design plan, 2D model, 3D model. Now, is this the correct representation of information system architecture, even in as is scenario? Can someone answer if this is complete, or are we missing something here? Can someone try to please answer here? Sorry, I keep on talking here, but if you can, if anyone of you can answer this, that will be great. Or I'll proceed. As part of the architecture, do you feel that this is complete information system architecture with whatever use case that we have discussed so far? Okay, I will not wait, but let me proceed. It is not just one team. There are multiple teams who are working with multiple customers here. Okay, that is one aspect to this information system architecture. Another aspect is these teams are not just at one location, they are at 2 locations. Some teams are in Pune location, some teams are in Mumbai location, some team or there could be a hybrid team working for one customer spread across Pune and Mumbai location. The inputs are still the same. Now, moving on, and as I said, this is information system architecture as is. Whatever is the current case, this is the documentation of it. Now, moving on, as part of the development activity, before even the development activity begins, we try to document a whole lot of as is processes, as is designs, as is architectures. So when we ask dream designers, they don't have any technology architecture, they don't have any data architecture, they don't have any network architecture. So what are these architecture types? We will look into it. But the dream designers as a company, they are very very new to their IT setup. They don't have any kind of IT strategy as such. So, and that's where they have contracted some IT firm to execute this particular project. In the questioning to them, we get to know that they don't have any sort of architecture. Now, what the IT team who is providing the solution, what they will do is they will start with a very, very simple solution. Let's say we want to introduce a web server, right? And we will create a server application which will be used by the DD teams, the dream designers teams. So what we will do is, or rather, I'm just proposing. It's not like what the IT team will do. So what the team is proposing is, let's have one server in the Pune location, in the Pune office, and one web server in the Mumbai office. And let's deploy a web application to which we will feed in all the past data. So we will have some sort of structuring around this data, and we will feed that data into the web server itself. And that web server will provide a URL, internal URL, the team will hit that URL, go to the search page, and they will key in the attributes, and then they'll be able to see the past project data. So this is option one. And this solution, we are thinking about this option because these two offices are not connected to each other at this point of time. There is no interconnection between these two offices. Obviously, the location, the location specific desktops and laptops, they are connected with a LAN network. But questioning them, we understood that there is no connection between these two locations, and so that's why we said, okay, let's have one server in one location, each location. But then, is this a efficient solution? Again, I'll pause for answer. Is this an efficient solution that we are proposing to the customer? Any takers here? Okay, all right. I'll move on. So this is not the best solution because first of all, we are dividing the data in two servers, one at each location, and we might need a lot of manual. There will be data duplication. Obviously, I will want all my past 10-year data to be replicated in this server and that server. And every time a new project artifact is created, I'll have to push into this server as well as Pune server as well as Mumbai server. So managing two different servers at two different locations is a big headache. So what we want to do is we want to have only one server. So what we decided, let's have one server only at Pune location, because let's say majority of the teams are in Pune location, and the Mumbai location will have access to the web server over internet. So they'll be able to access this over internet. So this is option two. Is this again an efficient solution? Though it might sound like an efficient solution, again, see, this is a single server solution. Okay, so whenever there is a single server, there is a single point of failure. What if this server goes wrong? What will happen? All of their work will be stopped, and so they may not be able to utilize this particular work. And their strategy is to have a server which should be up during the business hours, so that their productivity is not impacted. So what another kind of a solution that we can propose is, we will have a primary web server. We will go back to our earlier solution, but not in the same intention. We'll have a primary web server in Pune location, and then we will have a backup web server in the Mumbai location. And we will have some jobs which will run automatically and which will synchronize the data between these two servers. And for any reason, if this particular server goes down, then we will switch to the backup server. So this is sort of a very, this covers a lot of risks which are involved in terms of this particular server failure. And typically in the classical, classical examples where we are relying on a server, the chances are that after a year or so, the server might encounter storage issues or performance issues, and it might go down. So there are a lot of issues that we have to deal with. So this is, let's say, we at a simple level, at a simplified level, we want to stick with this solution. Though this solution is not a great solution, as a basic example, we will stick to this particular solution. Now, from the information system architecture, we will try to create a technology architecture. So what is a technology architecture? The technology architecture will want to address what kind of a technology we are going to use to provide the solution. In this case, it's a simple web application, but we will also want to decide on to the fact that we will have the web server as Apache Tomcat. For a front end, we will use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or any other modern UI solutions. Then as a backend, we will have Spring or Spring Boot, which will do the controlling part, the part of the controller. And then at the end, we will have MySQL as the database, and this database will store metadata for all the past project data. Meaning to say, what is a project ID and what kind of a let's say there is a design file. So I will want to store the reference of the design file in the database as an entry. That particular file contains data for which project, what are the keywords I can attach to that particular design, so that tomorrow if someone is searching for that particular keyword, I will just simply go to my MySQL DB. I will get all the designs which, where the keyword is, let's say, a commercial complex, and I will get all those search results which I will throw back as a result. So this is like a very high level technology architecture. Now, when we are thinking about technology architecture, I'll say this is a very plain vanilla architecture. There are a lot of, when it comes to the real life web application solution, it is much more complicated, and the solution involves a lot of other factors. For example, we are putting this Prime web server. Now we have to think about what kind of a operating system it is going to have, how much CPUs and RAM configuration it needs to have. Let's say 8 CPU or 16 GB, and we'll have to think about scalability as well. Today, this company is having 75 concurrent users. Though there are 100 users, there could be 75 users who are hitting this server at one time. So we are just putting some assumption. Now, what will happen in next 2 or 3 years? This company will double its employee base. It will go from 100 to 200. So we'll have to also think about the future growth, and as per the future consideration, we will have the server configuration. So all of those questions needs to be answered as part of the technology architecture. We have to give a thought. We'll have to gather those technical requirements, and get into an agreement with customers saying that, see, you'll have to pay for this kind of a configuration. The customer will also want to understand why we are spending this much of amount. So here, when it comes to solution, there are a few factors that we generally look after. First is performance. We will want our solution to be performing well. Then second thing is the cost. I'll have to basically, cost is a parameter wherein how many servers I'm going to have, how much disk space I need to have, so all the infrastructure, whether how much bandwidth that I need, how much internet bandwidth I will need for this particular solution. So all these things we'll have to consider as part of the technology architecture, and how much cost this at the end of the day, how much this solution is going to cost me. And the third thing is security. Every organization will want their data to be as secure as possible. So I will want to make sure that as part of my technology architecture, whatever solution I'm proposing, it is secure in all aspects. So it's a big topic. I will not get into the details of security topic. Then, so I spoke about performance, cost, security. Then we will think about reliability. When we say reliability, it is the what if scenarios. What if the server goes down? What if the data is lost? Do I have backups? Do I have a backup server which is ready? So all this is called reliability of the application, availability of the application. And then the last factor is nothing but operation ability. What is operational ability? Whenever we put the solution in production, meaning to say, let's say we put the solution and all the employees are using this particular application. Now there will be some operational aspects. Once in a while, we'll have to clear the log files, or we'll have to make sure that there is enough disk space. Once in a while, we might have to do the OS upgrades. Let's say for Red Hat Linux, I'll have to do the OS upgrade. So these are called operational activities. And these operational activities, we have to think through right from the design phase. So right from the architecture phase, I will want to make sure that whatever architecture I'm putting in place, we should be able to support that in terms of operation. So these factors are considered as part of the technology architecture. Now, one more architecture type, and this is much more complicated in a real world scenario, but at a very high level, the network architecture, we'll have to think through securing our network. So these two offices are there. They are connected with the LAN, local area network. And then I will want to have my primary web server as part of that LAN. And at the same time, this particular primary web server will be accessed over the internet from my Mumbai office location. So I will want to make sure I have enough bandwidth network connectivity for my web server, and I will also want to have an external firewall. So this is like a network equipment, a network hardware, and this will ensure that I am all the requests which are coming for my primary web server are intercepted by firewall. And these firewall solutions typically have a lot of built-in security features, which will make sure that uh, there are no any sort of cyber attacks happening. So uh, here in this particular case, one of the security configuration that we can do in the firewall is that whenever there is a traffic coming for primary web server, I will want to make sure that it is only coming from my Mumbai location office. So the all the traffic which is coming only from a specific IP address, I will honor it. Otherwise, what will happen is it will make this particular web server as a public web server, and anybody and everybody can head to the server. So there are a lot of types of cyber attacks which happen on on business servers or business applications to bring them down or to hack them. So in order to avoid, we must ensure as part of our network architecture that the solution is secure. Then at the same time, there are other network aspects, like I will want to have a public IP for my web server. I will want to have a domain name. We'll have to do the DNS configurations in the DNS server. And as I mentioned, the network firewall at office locations, we will want to have a configuration to secure the incoming request. We will want to have the security configurations in the network firewall, and the LAN and the firewall connectivity needs to be established. So a whole lot of consideration needs to be given to the network architecture. Now, moving on, there will be data architecture. So this gets into the development phase. But before even we get into the development phase, we will want to make sure that we understand the data footprint of the company. What kind of a data did they have? Can I put a structure around that data? So we know that they have a lot of files, old files. So we will want to create a file system structure. Let's say project one, under that there is a folder called plans, and then there are versions of that particular plan, and then the actual file is there. So we will want to ensure that we are creating a structure, we are organizing the files in this particular structure, and this particular data will obviously reside into a network file system, or it will go to the web server. Now, at the same time, now I need to give give a structure to my metadata. So this is called metadata. So I will also want to have customer will have all the customer IDs and customer name. Then customer will have one or more projects. Then it will have customer ID as the foreign key. Then there will be a lot of other attributes. For sake of simplicity, I have not included all those attributes here. Then design will, so at the basic level, I will want to have the design file version and the design file path. There might be a file name, etc. So, and every project will have one or more designs, and their corresponding path information will be there, and that path will correspond to the path onto the file structure. The same way, there will be models and plans. So whenever someone is hitting hitting the web application, this particular data will be there in the database. When we will search for let's say all the keywords, and I'm sorry, I did not include one important parameter here, which is keywords. So there will be a one column which will only contain the keywords. So we'll be able to look for those keywords, and corresponding design IDs or model IDs or plan IDs will be written back onto the web application. So that's about the data architecture. Now I will stop here. I mean, basically, the development team's activity will start whenever these kind of architectural discussions happen, and whenever all these documents are completed, or at a high level, the network, the architectural team or the senior developers, they all work together to in order to create these architectures, and then the actual work starts. And the actual work will start wherein the development team will start working on creating the design documents. They will create the UI design, UI framework. They will create the database design. They will create the controller logic, all the web application, the typical web application development that we do. That work will happen once we have this basic groundwork completed. Now, so this is an area wherein extensive work happens in the IT industry, and the typical developers will come after this, and then they will understand all of these documents. Okay, so whenever a developer is onboarded to the team, or a bunch of developers which are onboarded onto the team, the senior members or the architects, they will give them understanding of the complete project in terms of these documents, and that's where the actual work starts. Now, whatever architectures that we have seen here, may it be the information system architecture. So I'll quickly go back, and I'll tell you what are the aspects of enterprise architecture. So enterprise architecture starts with an architecture vision. So we must capture an architecture vision. We should have an architecture vision. From architecture vision, we will try to establish a business architecture. And for all the architectures, we try to capture answers to these 6 questions. Business architecture, we will create information system architecture, which is as is. Then there will be variations of the information system architecture. There will be multiple information system architecture. And if there is any, let's say if not all the companies are as as new as this Dream Designer company, but most of the companies who have started their IT journey in the past, they might have some sort of technology architecture, data architecture, and network architecture. So we have to capture as is for these architectures, and then we will create the to-be architecture, information system architecture. Then there will be more to-be solutions, one or more solutions. Then we will get into the technology architecture. We will get into the network architecture, and also we'll get into the data architecture. So all of these architecture types that we have seen so far, they are part of the enterprise architecture for this particular company. So this is the majority of work which is done as part of the IT projects. Now, I have taken I'm just I'm coming towards end of my presentation, and we will get into question answer more. But before that, we can think about, say, whatever solution that we have seen here, right? For example, this is called an on-premise solution, wherein I will want to host a web server in my office location. But typically, let's say this Dream Designer company is growing, and they are in a couple of years into their IT journey. And what happens is there are more than many web applications there. They started with one application, and they have like hundreds of web applications, and then they have maybe 10, 20 database servers, application servers, and whatnot. So what happens is, typically the IT infrastructure, what we call is this particular setup, this is called IT infrastructure. This IT infrastructure will keep on growing, and there will be, and when it becomes a mid-size or a big size enterprise, they will typically want to have a data center, which is a secured area, which is a secluded area from their office network. And these are a set of servers and infrastructure components, wherein they will create a very typical network architecture where they will have an external firewall, and behind the external firewall there will be web servers which are to be accessed by the internet. and then they will have an internal firewall, and behind the internal firewall there are databases and application server. So this, behind the internal firewall, all the critical data for the organization will reside. And these network firewalls, they have a very rich configuration ability features, wherein they will ensure that no request is coming from unknown source. So if a database server request is coming, I will ensure that it is only coming from my web server. So there is no other way to enter access the database server. The same way, same configuration will be applied to the application server. So this provides a layer of security. Now, because we don't want this to be a single point of failure, let's say if the Pune data center connectivity itself goes down, then typically mid to large scale organization will have two data centers, and they will divide the load into two data centers. Or generally, these web servers, they are actually load balanced. When I say load balanced, they will have two web servers serving the same website, one at each location, and that way the latency, the users will not experience a latency to access the web application. So this is a very typical network architecture for on-premise data centers. Now we are in an era wherein not a whole lot of new organization, they want to invest on their infrastructure, right? They don't want to buy servers, they don't want to manage the servers, because we all know, we are learning about cloud. So this dream designer company may also like to have all of their, or even if it is a single server solution, they might want to have it into the cloud itself. So instead of creating their own data center or their own infrastructure, they might want to go with the cloud solution, wherein all the setup is into the cloud regions. Same setup, there's a concept of firewall in the cloud as well, but there is no internal firewall as such, but there are a lot of security layers. You cannot, there are many security layers when it comes to the cloud setup. So this is another solution that the IT team can propose. Gone are the days wherein we will pursue our client to buy a server and install onto their office. So that is not happening anymore for any new projects. But we have to understand that in the industry there are a lot of large scale organization enterprises where they have huge data centers, they have a lot of investment which has already happened, they have their own hundreds and thousands of servers are out there, and hundreds and thousands applications are hosted there. Obviously every organization out there is on a cloud migration journey. They want to make the best use of the cloud, and there are n number of advantages going with the cloud setup. That's not the topic for today, but that's where the IT infrastructure is heading to. So I will I will stop my main talk enterprise architecture and IT infrastructure. Whatever I have covered is at a very basic level. I have touched upon a lot of aspects, but still at a basic level. Now, since we want to understand what are the career opportunities, right? So whatever architectures what we have seen, these architectures are typically created by various role members who are playing different roles onto the IT team. So we will quickly take a look at those roles. Now there are, what you see on the slide, these are development roles, meaning to say, we will talk in the context of this particular use case that we are discussing. Let's say there are IT teams where they will want to have a business analyst, and this business analyst is the person who will understand the domain of the customer. In this case, building construction. There are n number of domains here, and these business analysts are specialists. They have a lot of knowledge about that particular domain, and they know how to capture the business processes. So at a large scale project, we typically need to have a dedicated business analyst role who will right from the requirement gathering, requirement gathering sessions, they will want to capture all the business processes, all the roles and responsibilities and everything. So they are the, they are the ones who will gather all the requirements, business requirements, and they will work with the development team. They will transfer that knowledge to the development team. The developers come into picture little later into the project development phase, but business analysts play a bridge between the customer and the developers as well as technical leads and architects. So this is one area which is which is out there for IT people, those who are coming out as graduates. But there are some bit of an experience is required here. You cannot directly out of as a college fresh graduate go out there and join as a business analyst. You can do that if you have some some specialized knowledge into some domain. Maybe if you have done a master's in mechanical or a civil engineering, and you understand the business really well, then maybe you can start in the IT industry as a business analyst for that particular domain. Now a lot of there is another stream of roles which is coming is which are analysts. So these are typical data analyst and data scientist, and this is applicable to mostly the large firms who have enormous amount of data with them, and they want to make sense out of that data, because data is like a commodity nowadays. So data, we want to ensure that we are using the past knowledge, past data efficiently, or whatever data we are gathering from our business processes. So there are data analysts who are working in day in and day out on the data and trying to get the business they're trying to address different business use cases from this data. Then there are data scientists who are playing a little more advanced role than the data analysts. Maybe they are these data scientists are trying to model that, they are trying to create the AI models which will be able to predict. Let me give you an example. I'm working for a customer wherein it's a very huge construction company, and that's where I have taken this particular example. And they have a whole lot of whole lot of data in the past, and they want to build a model wherein they want to build a model which will predict the which will predict the I mean say whether whatever plan they are preparing, whether the plan will work or not. That kind of a prediction model that they are trying to build. So a lot of data scientists which are working there. Now, for all of your interest, for all the students out here, so when you all will start as developers. Most of you will start as developers, and then there are various types of developers. There are cloud developers, there are database developers, automation developers, DevOps developers, AI developers, BI developers. So AI developers is like a specialized branch wherein you have understanding of AI specific languages, wherein you know Python very well, and you know how to develop models. And then you can you can get into the AI development space. Then let's say BI development. This is nothing but business intelligence developers, and there are a lot of business intelligence products out there in the market. Tableau and Informatica. There are various options. So you specialize into that particular product, and that's where you are called BI developers. Then database developers. So you may not become the specialized developers right from day one, but maybe 6 months to 1 year experience into a particular project wherein you are placed in, and let's say you are put in as part of the as a database developer. So you will quickly learn those skills, and you will you will act as a junior database developer, and then maybe after 6 months to 1 year down the line, you will be called as a database developer who will be able to work independently. So these are the options. There are many more, but I will I have cut short this list here. Now typically developers will become the leads in the organization, and after working 3, 4, or 5 years, depends on your potential, depends on your ability to grasp, and depends on your hold on to the technology, you'll become a technology lead, a technical lead. Sorry. So at that point of time, you know how to develop application, right? If I give you an architecture, you know to take a bunch of developers and you will be able to drive the enterprise application development. Or there are some specialized areas here wherein you know the enterprise application development, but now you complement your knowledge with the cloud skills. Now you will learn the cloud skills, and you will be able to lead the projects wherein you will deploy the applications onto the Azure platform or AWS platform. Now from then onwards, there are technical lead become after 10 12 years of experience, he will get into an architect kind of a mode, and then he will be specialized into enterprise application development. And that enterprise application development can be on Azure or AWS, or there are some specialized areas like cybersecurity, wherein you have architectural knowledge, but you specialize into cybersecurity kind of a area. So this is just an idea of all the development roles. Then there are some infrastructure development roles. So basically, whatever development happens relies on a whole lot of infrastructure. So what we have seen in the example, that we will want to have some infrastructure engineer who will set up the LAN, who will set up the who will create the server, or who will install the server, who will configure the operating systems, who will install the firewalls, who will do all the configuration. So we definitely need some members on the team, or we definitely need a team which is responsible for the development of the infrastructure. And typically, when it comes to infrastructure engineers, now there are a lot of specialization. Earlier, it used to be infrastructure engineers who used to deal only with the on-premise setup. But now we are getting into specialized area like AWS Cloud Infra Developer, AWS Azure Cloud Infra Developer. Then we do have a lot of infra automation developer, meaning to say they will be responsible for deployment of the applications, but the deployment will not be manual, it will be automated deployment. Now, on top of it, and then we have a network engineer category, wherein we might have some network technician, a network analyst, then cloud network specialist. Then there are still data centers out there, wherein we will have data center network specialist. Then I'm sorry, I think I should have removed this AI developers and BI developers. I'm sorry about that. So moving on, we have infra lead, and in infrastructure development as well, there are some incremental roles which you will step into as your experience grows. So we have infra lead or network lead, and they are they are networking lead, or they are security specialist, or they are leads into a specific network solution. Then there are also architects in infrastructure space, wherein they know a whole lot of networking as well as security. So when we say network infra architect, right, the architect has to have understanding of networking, they have to have understanding of security, they have to have understanding of all the solutions. So when they have at least some knowledge about all these specialist areas, then they can act as an architect. Similarly, we may have Azure infra architect, or there are a lot of infrastructure solutions. Let's say firewall products are there. There are different products which are monitoring the network infrastructure. So they become SMEs into specific product area. Now, last but not the least, whenever all these applications are put into production, a lot of operational activities will be there. So, for example, here we have a bunch of applications, and I'm typically telling you there are hundreds to thousands of applications in any enterprise, and these applications will need to be supported by a huge number of support engineers, and their primary responsibility is to make sure that the application is up and running. And if there are any issues, or if there are any application activities, let's say I have to onboard I have to give access to a particular user onto that particular application, then the request will go to the support engineer. And let's say if someone is not able to, if someone doesn't have doesn't have specific roles in order to access application, then the support engineer will give that role. So there are n number of activities that a operation support engineer will be doing, and most of the time they will be supporting more than one application at a time. At the same time, it is also their responsibility to do the monitoring, application monitoring analyst. So there are roles, there are teams or sub teams as part of the operations activity which are responsible for monitoring the applications. When it comes to the infrastructure support or network support, there are various roles. We have infra help desk support, and so this help desk is nothing but the first line support, where every employee will reach out to this help desk, and then this help desk will appropriately route them to different teams. So they might need a desktop support. These 100 employees that we are talking about, they might have 100 laptops, either on Windows, Mac, or Linux. They will need to upgrade those those desktops. They will want to ensure that the antivirus solutions are there. They will also want to ensure that they have taken out the administrative rights, etc., etc. So a lot of things are being handled by the desktops. Now there are server operations. So when we say server operation, these are the servers which are hosting the applications, and these generally the teams are divided based on the operating system that they host. So the organization will have 10 to 100 Linux server, 10 to 100 Windows servers, and then there are two different teams who are supporting these servers, because supporting hundreds of servers is a huge job. It requires a specific team, because we have to make sure that the servers are up and running. They have enough, they have enough disk space. They are the security patches are applied, operating system patches are applied, etc., etc. And so these are the activities that server operation teams will be doing. Then comes the network system administrator. This is again a specialized area wherein they might want to ensure that the network parts are established, they are up and running, the internet link is up and running. They will also want to ensure the firewall is up and running, firewall is upgraded, patched, etc., etc. The similar activities, if they are being done in the cloud, then it will become a cloud system administrator. And the cloud system administrator typically needs to have a lot of knowledge in the network area as well as in the server, and even maybe desktop. A lot of tasks are getting converged into the cloud. Then at the same time, there will be infra monitoring analyst and the security monitoring analyst. So these are various roles which a typical a fresh graduate getting into an IT company will get into. They might start small and learn all the way up. So this is what all I have to communicate from my slide, my side. I will stop here and I'll take up a few questions if you have. Sorry, we are a bit over time here, but next 10 minutes we will try to, I'll try to answer if you have any questions.